Hi guys, welcome back to the MDS Guru podcast. This is Melinda, your hostess. We're going to talk about some more QMs today. Let's get started. How about we talk about the short stay percent of residents who newly received an antipsychotic medication. Just a reminder that the initial assessment does not count for this QM. Make sure that the medication that is coded as an antipsychotic really is. I have seen sometimes MDS coordinators code anti-anxiolytics as antipsychotics. Also, I've seen them code antidepressants as antipsychotics, and I've seen them not code an antipsychotic when it's 100% there. Just make sure you have it coded correctly. That's the biggest thing you can do to help yourself here, other than do a detailed history with the family if possible and the physician. A lot of times hospitals put the resident on this medication to help them sleep. And you will see that they weren't on it at home, but now they're on 25 milligrams of Seroquel at HS, and they were not on that before. The diagnoses that will keep this from triggering, of course, are schizophrenia, Tourette's, and Huntington's disease. And basically that's all there is to this QM. The next one is short stay percent of residents who were assessed and appropriately given the seasonal influenza vaccine. Make sure that your residents are up to date on their vaccines. And if they're refusing them, there needs to be documentation in the medical record that they are refused. You cannot just mark the MDS refused if there's no documentation to prove that. Remember, if your date of your MDS is on or after October 1st, or the entry date is on or before March 31st, you're going to need to ensure that the resident gets their vaccination for the flu. There are no covariates, and the only exclusion is less than 179 days old. Next, let's do short stay percent of residents who were assessed and appropriately given the pneumococcal vaccine. Right out the gate, the exclusion is if you are less than 5 years old. There's no covariates. For marking whether or not their pneumococcal vaccination process is current for the MDS, we must follow the current CDC guidelines. And remember, if you're going to mark on the MDS that it's refused, it must be in the medical record that it was refused. Otherwise, it should be marked as not offered. Lastly, for today, long stay percent of residents who were physically restrained. We don't want to do this. We just don't. There's no covariates. The only exclusion is dashing the items in section P. Remember, if the resident cannot remove whatever device you're questioning in their day-to-day actions, for instance, let's think about bed rails. If the resident is immobile and cannot move, then having a bed rail does not meet the definition of a restraint. But if the bed rail does meet the definition of a restraint, even if they're just used for mobility, you have to code them. You can refer back to page P of the RAI manual. In fact, I think you should probably review everything on the page P part of the RAI manual, because one of the definitions or clarifications for restraints is the resident must be able to remove easily, freedom of movement, medical symptoms, those kind of things. If they're using side rails to help with their bed mobility, but they can't put the side rails down themselves, then you need to really be looking at this, because you're supposed to code anything or any equipment that the resident cannot easily remove themselves. And since we did the short stay vaccine QMs, let's just briefly touch on the long stay. If the resident's been there more than 100 days, then the potential for this QM to trigger is there. That's it, everybody. I appreciate your loyalty and tuning in. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good week. Bye.